welcome back to Pokemon Summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 486, Wild in the Streets. The episode begins the day after Ash's Orberg Gym defeat. He had taken a rest at the Pokemon Center, but after that, he was fresh, despite his loss, deciding to not let the loss get him down, and he decided to train with his Pokemon, getting himself ready for a rematch with Rourke, specifically training with Pikachu, Aipom, and Turtwig, because he planned to use the same Pokemon in his rematch. Ash knew that if he wanted to beat Rourke, then he would have to have his Pokemon practice their strongest attacks, so he did just that, going out into a little rocky area by the Orberg mines with Brock and Dawn, and he sent out Aipom, Turtwig, and Pikachu, while Staravia watched, as Dawn also sent out her Piplup and Maniri to watch as well, while Pikachu practiced its Iron Tail, Turtwig practiced its Razor Leaf, and Turtwig practiced Razor Leaf again, and Aipom practiced Focus Punch, managing to destroy several rocks that were made out of pure coal, because, they were in the mines after all. Dust rose up from all the coal being destroyed, as Turtwig rapidly switched between using Razor Leaf and Bite to practice both attacks. When the dust cleared from these destroyed pieces of coal, Ash complimented his Pokemon for trying so hard. Dawn and Brock were impressed by Ash's Pokemon's power, with Dawn admitting that Ash's Pokemon were looking strong and fit, and Brock adding that Ash seemed to have gotten over his loss against Rourke the day before. Pikachu, Aipom, and Turtwig were given a little break because of how well they were doing, so when Pikachu went over to Brock, Dawn, Piplup, and Maniri instantly jumped down from the little rock that it was standing on by Dawn and started to stroke Pikachu's head softly with its ears, causing Pikachu to smile, embarrassed at the attention it was getting. Maniri sure did love Pikachu. Man, I'm so glad there's no fucking furry shit, dude. I don't want to see Pikachu and Maniri fuck, please. Ash then walked over to where everyone had gathered, and Dawn admitted that the coal mine was a really good training ground for Ash's Pokemon, with all the rocks and rough terrain to use as obstacles for the Pokemon to train against and to hype themselves up. Ash agreed with Dawn, although Dawn then changed the subject a little bit, mentioning that since only Turtwig was suited to battle against Rourke's rock-type Pokemon, since it was a grass-type, Ash should just call Professor Oak at his lab and get him to send some of his old Pokemon that Ash had told Dawn about. Ash wasn't too keen on this, shaking his head to deny, however, saying that he wanted to stick with his current Pokemon team, just like he did when he went to the Hoenn region. He didn't want to cop out by using his old Pokemon. He wanted to prove that his newer ones were better. Although, ironically, Aipom and Pikachu weren't new, but whatever. Dawn tried to change Ash's mind, even offering her Piplup for him to use, since it was a water type, and water types were good against rock types, but Ash reiterated that he would stick with his current team, no matter what, saying that there was always a chance for his team to win. Dawn did not understand Ash one bit, and thought he was just being stubborn for no fucking reason. And she asked Ash if he wanted to win or not, but Ash said that he didn't need stronger Pokemon to win a battle. Otherwise, his newer Pokemon would never improve if he just relied on his older ones. Also, Ash reminds Dawn that when Paul battled against Rourke, he didn't need any Pokemon with type advantages. In fact, it was quite the opposite. His Azumarill lost miserably against Geodude, and it took his Alakid and Chimchar to take out his Geodude, Onix, and Cranidos, two Pokemon that were weak against all three of those Pokemon. And if Paul could beat Rourke at a type disadvantage, Ash was confident that he definitely could. And when Ash hyped up his Pokemon, they were equally confident that they could beat Rourke despite the type disadvantage. And we see a flashback of Paul's Azumarill, Alakid, and Chimchar going against Rourke's Geodude, Onix, and Cranidos, as Dawn admits that she was wrong, and states her confidence that Ash could in fact win with a type disadvantage. Brock then reveals that he had an idea to help Ash out, as he sent out his Sudowoodo, specifying that he believed Ash should train against Sudowoodo, since Sudowoodo was the perfect Pokemon for Ash to train against, due to it having the same type and abilities as some of Rourke's Pokemon, because it was a rock type, and it had the ability Rock Head, and it can use Double Edge to boot, and because of the Rock Head ability, it couldn't do any damage to itself, just like Rourke's rock Pokemon. And if Ash could defeat Sudowoodo, then Ash should be able to use that same strategy that used to beat Sudowoodo to beat Rourke. Ash instantly agrees with the idea, admitting that it was a great one, as he thanks Brock for the suggestion and help, and asks his Pokemon if they were up for some more training. And they all nod and cry out, determined to train. Seeing this, and also just seeing the overall determination of Ash and his Pokemon, Dawn got fired up as well, and she quickly left Ash and the gang to go to the Pokemon Center to heal her Pokemon, and also to bring her Piplup and Maniri, after they were healed, to the little backyard in the Pokemon Center, so that she could train with them herself, so that they could practice some new contest combinations and moves. Despite Ash and the gang not knowing when Dawn's next contest would be, anyways, Ash still thought that it was a good idea for Dawn to get some training in, while he and Brock were doing some training, and therefore, Ash and the gang decided to split up. Ash and Brock continued to train for Ash's gym battle, while Dawn went back to the Pokemon Center. As soon as Dawn, Piplup, and Maniri entered the center, before Dawn could even think about healing up Piplup and Maniri, her attention was brought to a large television screen on the wall, which was currently showcasing Marion, who was advertising an upcoming contest in Floroma Town. Marion was officially announcing the location of the contest for the first time. Several coordinators inside the Pokemon Center were watching the TV screen and were very hyped for the contest, including Dawn, obviously, declaring that if Ash could just win his goddamn gym battle, then they could make it to Floroma Town in time, and Dawn could finally, hopefully, get her first contest ribbon. The advertisement then showed the three contest judges, Nurse Joy, Raul Contesta, and Mr. Sukizo, and the commercial ended. Meanwhile, we then cut to the Orberg Coal Mining Museum, where we find Dr. Kenzo and his two assistant scientists walking into the fossil restoration area inside of the research area, where the fossil restoration machine was usually kept. But Dr. Kenzo and his scientists were very shocked to learn, very shocked, they couldn't even fucking believe it, that it appeared like someone had stolen the fossil restoration machine in the middle of the night, while all the scientists were no longer in the museum. It had literally been ripped out of place. Thankfully, at least there was 3 fossil restoration machines in the entire museum, so fossils could still be revived, but the scientists were more so just concerned about the Pokemon who were being revived by the fossil machine by the fossil restoration machine in the night, and also just all the fossil Pokemon in the area. So, as one scientist went to go report the theft of the machine to Officer Jenny, per Dr. Kenzo's orders, and Dr. Kenzo ordered his other scientist to check the security cameras in the museum that would show all of the already revived fossil Pokemon in the garden to make sure that they were at least okay. And much to Dr. Kenzo and his assistant scientist's relief, none of the revived fossil Pokemon that were just chilling in the garden were stolen. They were still just chilling in the garden. But things weren't that happy, because the fossil that was being restored inside the fossil machine, a single one, was still inside of it and was therefore taken along with the fossil restoration machine. Meanwhile, it's then revealed to us who stole the fossil reviving machine. Even though it should have been obvious, it was Team Rocket, who had done exactly what they said they were going to do, and they were celebrating their successful theft by cheering and drinking some champagne or milk, whatever the fuck you want to call it, from some very stylish wine glasses. How they get them despite being broke, who knows? The fossil restoration machine was behind them, and Team Rocket proceeded to talk about how much money they would get because of this machine. After lovingly examining their for-sure moneymaker, Team Rocket made one final toast, and finished off their drinks after this toast, with Jesse then suggesting that now was as good a time as ever to revive the first fossil, deciding that they were going to revive the first fossil as opposed to sell it. And James and Meowth thought that this was a great idea, especially since they obviously assumed that there would have been a fossil inside of the machine, and there should have been. However, Jesse and Meowth were confused when Jesse asked James to get the fossil out of his pocket for them, but James said that he didn't have it, and Meowth did. But Meowth shook his head, saying that he thought Jesse or James were at least with the fossil. But Jesse said that she didn't have it either. So Team Rocket realized they had made a massive mistake. None of them had grabbed the fossil. So where the fuck was it? If it wasn't in the lab. But anyways, obviously, Team Rocket started to fight about whose fault it was that they didn't have access to the fossil. But suddenly, the fossil revival machine interrupts the fighting right before it could actually get physical, as it starts to make whirring and clicking noises, and a message on screen shows up, which Team Rocket reads, because their attention had been brought to the machine, and essentially, the message on the screen informed Team Rocket that the fossil inside the machine had just finished reviving, surprising Jessie, as she realizes that the fossil was actually just inside of the machine the whole time, which we technically already knew. The message then briefly switched to rebirth entirely complete and showed a silhouette of Aerodactyl. Team Rocket didn't notice the silhouette, so when the doors to the machine opened and smoke poured out in an immense amount, Team Rocket simply stared in shock and awe. When finally the smoke cleared and the Aerodactyl was revealed once it stepped out of the fossil revival machine, revealing to Team Rocket that the fossil inside must have been an old amber, which was what Aerodactyl was revived from. At first, Aerodactyl was sleeping, but it soon woke up, much to Team Rocket's amazement, as Jessie laughed in amazement and quickly threw a Pokeball, wanting to catch the newly revived Aerodactyl. But Aerodactyl apparently saw humans, which didn't even exist during its regular time, as a threat. So it proceeded to swat the Pokeball away, hitting Jessie right in the face, knocking her down to the ground, and the Pokeball lands in Meowth's hands, while Aerodactyl scoffs in disgust, not wanting to be captured. Jessie then got back up out of pure anger and started to shout at the Aerodactyl, demanding that it go in the Pokeball. Meowth and James were even frightened by Jessie's anger, but Jessie's anger only made Aerodactyl angry in return, as it decided to fly away, done with Team Rocket's bullshit, as it ignored Jessie's yelling, and as it went further up into the sky, a glowing light encircled its body. Jessie wondered what the fuck it was doing, leaving James to try and search through his good old Pokemon index cards that had information on Pokemon. Although he was having trouble finding information on Aerodactyl, since it was prehistoric after all, so he couldn't figure out what Aerodactyl was doing, and he was hoping the cards would tell him. Before James could figure out jack shit, Aerodactyl swooped down and smashed into Team Rocket with a full force attack, leaving Team Rocket to fall hard on the ground, leading James to realize that Aerodactyl must have been charging up an attack, and after looking through his index cards, he realized that it was Giga Impact. Anyways, Team Rocket were furious at the fact that Aerodactyl attacked them, and they were even more furious when they noticed Aerodactyl beginning to fly away towards Orberg City, which meant that it was getting away from them. Jessie immediately suggested that they go follow it to try and capture it again, but Meowth suggested that they would do that eventually. For now, they had to do some preparation, which apparently involved getting some more fossils to help them out with battling Aerodactyl. Meanwhile, we then cut back to Ash and Brock with Sudowoodo and Ash's Pokemon still out, as Ash and Brock were in the same location as they were at the beginning, in Orberg. Anyways, Ash and Brock were currently in the middle of a battle, Right now, Turtwig alone was battling Sudowoodo, and was using a Razor Leaf while Brock told Sudowoodo to use Double Edge. The two attacks collided, and in an explosion, both Turtwig and Sudowoodo were sent flying back. But both Turtwig and Sudowoodo were able to withstand the attack, frustrating Ash, as he didn't know what strategy to use to win, as he reflected on his loss, remembering that Rock's Pokemon were very fast and were able to avoid pure power attacks. So Ash knew that pure power alone would definitely not be enough to defeat Rourke. Ash was really getting into his head, remembering his battle with Rourke, and the power of Rourke's Geodude, Onix, and Cranidos, and how they absolutely beat Ash's ass. Brock observed the obvious, being that Ash was so stressed out about not being able to find a strategy that he was gritting his teeth and closing his eyes. So Brock suggested that he and Ash take a little break so Ash could recharge. Just then, though, Rourke shows up and greets Ash, and Ash greets him back, along with Brock too. Rourke then goes on and on about how much he loved the surrounding area, going on about how beautiful it was, and how the rock and ground extended as far as the eye could see. Ash agreed, while Rourke clarified that he was very much intending to dig up new fossils, and that's why he had a pickaxe in his hand. Ash immediately turned the topic of the conversation to him potentially getting a rematch with Rourke, and Ash decided to kiss ass and admitted that he was very impressed with how Rourke battled Paul and Paul's strong strategies. Although Rourke responds by asking why Ash was so bothered and concerned with how Paul battled, and asked Ash if he was trying to emulate his battle style off of Paul's by teaching his Pokemon how to fight against their weaknesses. Ash realized that he was basically doing what Paul was doing, leaving Ash shocked, as Rourke points out that it was Ash that would be battling, not Paul, and Ash and Paul, as far as he knew, were two very different people, so Ash should not try and emulate Paul's battle strategy. And also mentioned that if Ash was utilizing Paul's battle strategy, he actually wouldn't be battling Rourke, but rather someone else. Ash was confused by what the fuck Rourke meant by this, leaving Brock to reveal, along with Rourke, that Ash would essentially be battling himself if he went along with Paul's battle strategy, since Ash and Paul had different ideals and different ways of battling, so Ash would basically be betraying himself if he went along with what Paul did. Ash realized that he had in fact been worrying about Paul and how he battled way too much, and promised to go with more of his own style from now on, and not worry about what Paul was doing, just like he had done before he met Paul, and didn't get obsessed with him and shit. Rourke was very happy with the fact that Ash was quickly able to bounce back and go back to his regular self, praising Ash for this. Rourke goes to dig for fossils now. Well, at least that's what it looked like. He was looking in various places for the perfect spot to dig. So Brock asked if he was looking for fossils, and Rourke confirmed this, also revealing how his Cranidos used to be a fossil before it was restored. Ash was surprised and amazed, because he didn't know that there were other fossil Pokemon that he didn't know about. But Rourke just ignored this and went on to say how fantastic fossils were, and how he was honored that his main Pokemon, Cranidos, was the first fossil that was revived using the Foster Restore machine. As Rourke continues on talking about fossils, Brock expresses interest in everything Rourke was saying, admitting that he really liked how fossils gave a peek into the past world, while Ash was just left confused by everything Rourke was saying. He didn't understand how a person could like fossils that much. He even remained confused when Brock tried to add his 2 cents about the fossils. Meanwhile, we then find Dawn practicing her contest moves with Piplup and Baniri. She currently was having Piplup and Baniri spin in the Pokemon Center backyard area, and they did so, landing on the ground beautifully, leading Dawn to compliment Baniri and Piplup on their style. Just then, Aerodactyl had arrived in Orberg, appearing right over Dawn and Piplup and Baniri, and all the other coordinators who had the same idea to train in the backyard of the Pokemon Center, including one with a Psyduck, one with a Subflora, one with a Furret, one with a Teddiursa, and one with an Azuro. And to make matters worse, Aerodactyl was angry and randomly fired off Hyper Beam at different times. The Hyper Beam was heading straight for Dawn and the other coordinators, so she quickly got in front of her Pokemon, shielding them, and just barely managing to avoid the blast herself before checking her Pokedex to scan Aerodactyl, confirming Aerodactyl's identity. One of the coordinators asked Dawn if that was really an Aerodactyl, even though it should be extinct, and Dawn confirmed this, shocked, and very surprised to hear that Aerodactyl should have been extinct. She didn't register that it was probably revived by the fossil revival machine. Soon enough, Aerodactyl leaves the vicinity of Dawn and the coordinators, but continues to rampage across town, firing Hyper Beam at random locations, damaging buildings, streets, and even almost hitting some random-ass civilians. We then cut back to the museum, where Dr. Kenzo was greeted by his assistant, who he sent out, and also Officer Jenny. The assistant had successfully got her, and Kenzo and his assistants and Officer Jenny could all hear something going on outside. So, one of Kenzo's assistants checked the security cameras they could see outside, and they saw that an Aerodactyl was free, wreaking havoc upon the city, and even heading towards the museum. After Dr. Kenzo looks at the Aerodactyl for a little bit, he realizes that it must have been revived from the fossil and machine that was stolen. Just then, the red emergency light in the museum flashes, signifying that there was some bad shit going on, and this was confirmed as Aerodactyl arrives and blasts a hole into the museum with its Hyper Beam. Kenzo, his assistants, and Officer Jenny all noticed on the cameras that the hole in the museum was in a room in the garden where a revived Armaldo and Kabutops were, so now they had escaped the garden. And some other fossil Pokemon soon follow, including Kabuto, and Anorith, and Lily, and Greydilly. Kabutops and Armaldo instantly viewed Aerodactyl as a threat for some reason, and Armaldo used Hyper Beam, and Kabutops used Bubble Beam and Mudshot. But Aerodactyl simply dodged these attacks, right as we see Officer Jenny, Dr. Kenzo, and his assistants running towards Kabutops and Armaldo to try and recall them into their Pokeballs so they couldn't cause any damage with their attacks, because, they weren't supposed to be free and all that. But as they were running up, Aerodactyl fired a Hyper Beam, which sent Officer Jenny, Dr. Kenzo, and his assistants flying back in pain as they slammed into the ground. As soon as Kenzo, Officer Jenny, and Kenzo's assistants got back up, they saw that Aerodactyl was flying away, and Armaldo and Kabutops were running around freely. So, while they were able to contain the rest of the fossil Pokemon, there was 3 on the loose, and Kenzo knew this was bad. Meanwhile, back with Rourke, Ash, and Brock, Rourke was still describing how beautiful fossils were to him, while Brock was listening intently, and Ash was severely bored. Suddenly, though, Ian arrived and told Rourke that something terrible had happened, and advises that Rourke come quickly to help out. And Ian goes in more detail, explaining the situation regarding the rampaging Aerodactyl, and also how Kabutops and Armaldo had escaped too. Thankfully, Ian had called a helicopter in, so Rourke, Ash, and Brock could get in the helicopter with him to go over to where Aerodactyl was spotted, and Kabutops and Armaldo too. Just then, Officer Jenny puts out a message to everyone in Orberg City, and this message was displayed on a TV in the Pokemon Center. Officer Jenny, Kenzo, and the 2 assistants were currently in Orberg Mine, and Officer Jenny was announcing to the people of the city that a trio of fossil Pokemon that had been revived were on the loose, and suggested that everybody evacuate until the situation was resolved, assuring all the people that she would do her best to capture the fossil Pokemon who were currently located at Orberg Mines, as reported by some mine workers. So that's why Officer Jenny and Dr. Kenzo and his 2 assistants had went to the Orberg Mines. Dawn had currently retreated into the Pokemon Center, so she saw this announcement from Officer Jenny on the screen, and developed fears that Ash and Brock could be in trouble, since they were near the Orberg Mine. And what Dawn didn't know was that Ash, Brock, and Rourke were actually even more near the Orberg Mine, because we then cut to Officer Jenny and Dr. Kenzo and his assistants managing to get to Armaldo and Kabutops, and they managed to corner them against a rocky formation, getting out of the truck that they had used to get to the place. But immediately after this, Rourke, Brock, and Ash arrived, and also cornered the Armaldo and Kabutops. After running very fast, Rourke, seeing that Officer Jenny and Kenzo and the scientists had equipped some miners with some defensive outfits, feared that the miners could still get hurt, so he told them all to let him handle this, as he sent out his Cranidos and had it use flamethrower on the ground, causing an explosion that blows up dust to blind Kabutops and Armaldo, distracting them and preventing them from attacking. While Ash watches, impressed with this technique, before he and Brock decide to get involved, now that Armaldo and Kabutops were distracted, as Ash sends forth Pikachu, and Brock sends forth Sudowoodo, and Pikachu and Sudowoodo run up to Armaldo and Kabutops, trying to get close to them for a close-range attack. However, Pikachu and Sudowoodo failed, as they were sent flying back by Hyper Beam and Bubble Beam. This leads Rourke to take action again, as he has his Cranidos use his Zen Headbutt, which strikes fear into the Kabutops and Armaldo, knowing how powerful Zen Headbutt was for some reason. But the Zen Headbutt attack couldn't get off, because just then Team Rocket showed up and grabbed Cranidos, Armaldo, and Kabutops with their new mech and the arms that deployed from it. The arms then retracted to bring the fossil Pokemon closer to Team Rocket, while everyone was shocked to see that Team Rocket's new mech was actually combined with the fossil restoration machine. Regardless, Team Rocket emerged from the mech and recite their usual motto, with Wobbuffet and Mime Jr. joining in, but everyone was just annoyed by the motto, and Kenzo demanded that Team Rocket dismantle their mech and return the fossil restoration machine, as well as the fossil Pokemon, immediately, but Team Rocket just laughed as they refused. So Ash tells Pikachu to get ready and strike with a Thunderbolt on Team Rocket, but Rourke stops him and reminds Ash that the fossil Pokemon could get hurt if Pikachu used Thunderbolt, and the revival machine could get destroyed if Pikachu used Thunderbolt. Rourke suggests that they take a smarter approach, while Team Rocket laugh, taunting that there was nothing that could be done to stop them now. But just then, Aerodactyl appeared and hit the ground next to the mech with a Hyper Beam, bringing up some dust and causing the mech to fall over and the arms to malfunction, releasing Armaldo, Kabutops, and Cranidos. So, Dr. Kenzo and his assistant quickly recall Armaldo and Kabutops into their Pokeballs. So now, Aerodactyl, even though it helped them out, was the only fossil Pokemon that was dangerous. Aerodactyl then goes to use a Giga Impact attack on Cranidos out of pure anger, showing that it just destroyed the mech's arms by accident. And Rourke quickly told Cranidos to defend itself by stopping the Giga Impact and meeting it head-on. Cranidos obliges, and it does manage to hold the attack back at first for a few seconds, but the attack proved to be too much for the small Cranidos, and it was sent flying back directly into Ash, Brock, and Rourke, sending them flying back as well, and rolling along the ground. Disappointing everyone, because they really thought that Cranidos had it in the bag. Just then, Aerodactyl gets out more of its anger by looping in the air and charging up another Hyper Beam to attack Pikachu. So Ash jumps to protect it and basically folds his body over Pikachu, but this meant that Ash was about to be hit by the Hyper Beam himself, but just then, thankfully, Dawn arrived with her Piplup and Baniri used Ice Beam, and Piplup used Bubble Beam to counter the Hyper Beam, and basically all the attacks exploded when they made contact with each other. Ash and Brock were relieved to see Dawn, who got in front of the two of them and Pikachu, and told them to let her handle Aerodactyl with her Bunny and Piplup, right as an angry Aerodactyl, who was angry at its attack being deflected, started to use Giga Impact, heading towards Dawn, Piplup, and Bunny. Dawn wasn't worried whatsoever, though, and told Piplup and Bunny to get ready and wait for Aerodactyl to get closer first. And it did, flying closer as it charged up its Giga Impact, and once Aerodactyl got close enough, Piplup and Bunny jumped into the air and spun, using their coordinated technique practiced before to dodge the Giga Impact when it was launched, thanks to their awesome spinning, leaving everyone impressed by Dawn's skills. Then Piplup and Bunny jump back into the air, and they come crashing down on Aerodactyl's back, and using their weight, they smash it into the ground, knocking it down, which allowed Dr. Kenzo to throw Aerodactyl's Pokeball, or what would be Aerodactyl's Pokeball, because after shaking for a little bit, and everyone anxiously watching, Aerodactyl was caught by the Pokeball, ending the fossil Pokemon rampage. Yay! Things were not over yet, though, because right as Dr. Kenzo thanked Ash and the gang and Rourke for their assistance, happy that everything was okay now, Rourke corrected Dr. Kenzo, however, mentioning that things were far from okay, as he saw Team Rocket get their fossil mech back upright, ready to try and steal the fossil Pokemon again. So Rourke stepped forward and confronted Team Rocket, demanding that they return the fossil restoration machine again. Team Rocket realized that they probably couldn't go up against Rourke and his Cranidos, so they decided to run away, at least keeping their mech intact so that they could potentially steal a fossil another day, and then use the fossil restoration mech to revive a fossil. Rourke has his Cranidos follow after Team Rocket. Pissing Team Rocket off, as Jessie demands that Meowth do something to stop Cranidos, and in response, Meowth presses a button on the mech that fires off a missile that transforms into a net, which captures Cranidos, preventing it from going after them. Much to everyone's shock, as they run towards Cranidos to try and free it, while Team Rocket get away. Rourke tells Cranidos to try its best to break out if it wanted to show Team Rocket a lesson. Cranidos did want to show Team Rocket a lesson, and basically make them pay for imprisoning it as a net, as it stands up in the net and starts to cry out loudly, glowing simultaneously. It was glowing so brightly that Team Rocket noticed the glowing and started to panic, realizing that it was evolving, and they were amazed to see Cranidos' evolved form for the first time when it did evolve into Rampardos, and Rourke was amazed to see this as well. Team Rocket lost their amazement soon enough, though, when the Rampardos had enough power to use its claws to break out of the net and start running towards Team Rocket's mech. Rampardos very easily catches up to the mech and uses its claws to detach the fossil restoration machine from the actual mech, getting it back. With nothing to worry about, such as injuring Pokemon or destroying the fossil restoration machine, Rampardos grabs the machine and places it on the ground safely, before using a Zen Headbutt per Rourke's orders, which smashes into Team Rocket's mech with great accuracy, destroying the mech and sending Team Rocket blasting off. Jessie immediately blames James and yells at him, so James yells back, but James gets sick of yelling, so he gives up. While Meowth had been annoyed from the fighting from the get-go. Anyways, with Team Rocket gone, everyone cheered for Rampardos and its great skills, as Rampardos ran up to Rourke, and Dawn scanned Rampardos with a Pokedex, commenting on how amazing and powerful it was. Dr. Kenzo then thanks Rourke and Rampardos for getting the fossil restoration machine back, and Officer Jenny salutes Rampardos and Rourke for their help, thanking them officially. And she also thanks Ash and the gang as well. Rock takes the thank you to heart and tries to flirt with Officer Jenny, but as a result, Krogunk forcibly pops out its Pokeball and stabs Brock with a poison jab and drags him away while Brock moans in pain. With Brock gone, Ash turns to Rourke and requests a rematch with him tomorrow, which Rourke agrees to, when Ash confirms that he had made his own strategy. After Rourke asked him if he had one, Ash was happy to have had the rematch granted to him and turned to Dawn, asking her if she wanted to train with him, since he had already trained with Brock, and he thought Piplup and Baneri were pretty good. Dawn said that she would train with Ash, explaining how it would be good training for her too. So the episode ends with Ash pumping his fist in the air and looking at Rourke, more determined than ever to beat him after some training with Dawn, since he had a new plan. As for Rourke, he really appreciated Ash's determination.